Hello everybody, all you cool people that want to learn Blender. Today we're going to do a very early introduction into Blender. This is the number one thing you gotta know before we get to start making some cool stuff. Now, I know everybody's seen all those cool things on the internet and all those cool things in the video games. I know you're really eager to try and start making some of those things, but we gotta crawl before we can walk, we gotta walk before we can run, and we gotta run before we can fly. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So, just to give you a little background, this is what I have done in the past. Made a couple of video game characters, just dabbled in some photorealistic stuff. I like to sketch, I like to draw. Here's some sculpting and doing some little odd job pieces, miscellaneous stuff. So I've got a bit of a background in 3D and I really love it, and I've been wanting to share this with people. So before we get to making something like this cool cat right here, here's some polygons. There he's rigged and set up for an animation. So, before we can make something like this, we got to start making stuff like a box or a house. And I'll walk you through making a car and making an animal, and then finally we will make a video game character. So, back to Blender. When you first open up Blender, you download it, you install it, and you hit that first button to open up Blender. This is what you're going to see. Yeah, it's a little overwhelming. So, again, this first tutorial here is going to be nothing but an introduction to the user interface. I'm going to show you where all the buttons are, how to kind of find your way around Blender. This will be really quick, really short, really sweet. Here we go. So, let's click over here. First thing you're going to notice, a box. This here is a camera. And over here is a light. Yeah, and of course our box. I am left clicking on everything. Okay. Now, let's work on moving around our scene. That's what we call this, a scene. So, I'm going to use the middle mouse button, or that scroll wheel. I'm going to click it down. Click down the middle mouse button. And click and drag, and look at me. I am rotating around my objects. Look at that. Okay, so middle mouse button, or that scroll wheel, click it down and drag, and that rotates around. Alright, next up, pan, or in video games this is called strafe. So hold shift and click that middle mouse button and drag. Alright, there we go. Awesome. Awesome. So let's add in the combo rotate. So middle mouse button, drag, and now shift, middle mouse button, and pan. Alright. Now, next up is zoom. Now you can do this a couple of different ways, but I like to do the scroll wheel. So scroll up and we zoom in, scroll out and we zoom away. Awesome. Haha. Sweet. Okay. Now, one thing to note is that you click on something and say you want to zoom into that something. You can hit the period or the decimal point on your number pad. It really helps to have a physical number pad on your laptop. So if you hit the decimal point, it'll zoom into whatever you have selected. So I'm going to scroll out, click that, zoom into that, and we can zoom into all sorts of things. Okay. Next up. Again, we're just getting introduced to some of the buttons right now. Something that'll make it a little less crazy for when you just get into Blender, because there are a lot of buttons. So we are currently in object mode. Now there are different modes. Helps to have something selected. So a mode is kind of like telling you what you can do with the object. So in object mode you can do certain things. And over here we have edit mode. Oh, and you can do certain things there. And in sculpt mode you can sculpt. Oh, that's exciting. I love sculpting. You can do vertex paint, weight paint, texture paint. You can do a lot of cool things, but we're not quite there yet. So let's go back to object mode. In object mode, we can move the object, rotate, and scale. Okay, so moving an object. Here we go. Over on the left-hand side over here, you notice that this little button here is blue. This is the select box. Now, if you hover over the button, then it's going to give you a little bit of information about that button, and it'll give you a shortcut. So you have to hit spacebar and B in order to get this tool. So I'm going to come down here to Move Tool. Now for me, the Move Tool says shortcut spacebar G. Now Blender's kind of silly because G is short for grab. So think about grab. So if I want to move this box, I want to use my Move Tool. And look at this. We got the fancy dancy little gizmo. Crazy gizmo. Now notice that the arrows are lining up with the axes. That's what this is called. It's an axis. This is a y-axis. This is an x-axis. And this little blue one here is the z-axis. If you want to move your box, you can click and drag. And look at that. Boxes for days. You can do the Y. You can do the Z. In Blender, there are multiple ways to do the same, what we say, operation. So, if I want to move the box along the x-axis, now, where this is pointing, this is the positive x. So, we're going plus. There we go. Now, up here, if you'll look while you move, you'll see some numbers. So look up here and we will watch the numbers. So you're looking at the D, 3 meters. Then you see 3 meters global. So what that means is basically delta 3 meters or 4 meters. That means how far it has moved. And then 4 meters global means where it's sitting in the world. So we're in the positive 3-4 meters. See how it's kind of snapping, clicking into place? I am currently holding down the control button, CTRL, control, and that is snapping things to every meter. Now I could just slide it like this, and I get a floating point decimal. That's fancy speak for you're getting a lot of crazy little numbers. So that was the positive X. Now I'm going to move it into the negative X. Look at that. All my numbers are negative now. Okay, wow. Now, same thing can be done on the Y. So, snap it in the Y. I'm holding control. That's why it's getting a little clicky. And then I can do the X. And here we go down, down, down into the negative X. And then positive X. Okay, so that's fun. Another little thing, if you want to get really exact with moving, you can hold Shift. So I'm going to click and drag, and it'll hold Shift, and it'll slow down my movement. Alright, Control Z to bring that back. I just want to show you all these cool tools before we got started. Okay, next up is Rotate. So let's come over here to our tools. I'm going to hover over because I want to know what the shortcut is. It is spacebar R. So I'm going to click that, or I can do spacebar R. Now, one thing to note is Shortcuts might be different for different people. I've noticed different versions of Blender have different shortcuts, so that's something to be aware of. So here is rotate, and so we can rotate in the Z axis. So one thing to notice is watch the, you know what, let's do it in the X axis. So the X axis is running along here, and this rotation is around the X axis. So if I click, notice it's rotating along the X axis. Oh, and it gives us some fun stuff here. Now I'm going to hold Control, and now it's snapping every 5 degrees. Now that is super helpful when you want to get it exactly the right way. So again, look up here in the upper left and you will see numbers. 90, 100, 120, 55, and 180. Cool. Same thing with going around the Z axis. You can do that. And along the Y. You know, we're just playing with it. So, another really important thing about Blender is the order in which you press your buttons. Let's say I hold Shift and click and drag. So I hit Shift first. It's not going to do anything fancy. But there are certain cases where you have to click and drag first and then hold the operation button or the operation key on your keyboard. Last one, scale. So let's see here, scale. Spacebar S. All right, let me try the spacebar S. Spacebar S. Now that was fun. So I did hold spacebar, and now you have this little box here, but you could just do S. And here we go. You can scale. So we're going to scale along the Y-axis. We can scale along the X-axis. And we can scale along the Z or the Z-axis. Everybody in Europe uses the Z instead of Z. It's kind of silly. They're fun. To each their own. Now, notice here we have a white circle. Don't accidentally click on that. That will scale in reference to how you're looking at it. What we say in reference to the viewport. So if you want to scale the whole thing, go on ahead and just hit S for scale. I'm going to undo a lot of stuff. So Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Let's do spacebar R. Now I'm going to select this white circle. And again, it's rotating around the axis of your viewport. And now let's do grab. Here's that little white circle. And I can move it in reference to the viewport. It's not super useful yet. One other thing to note is you can use your keyboard to put in exact measurements. So let me give you an example. We can do grab, and then I will specify the X-axis. So I clicked X on my keyboard, and then I will type in a number. So let me say 2, and it will move it 2 units or 2 meters in the positive X direction. All right, well, let me try that again. Let me do grab, type in Y, and then I will say -3 meters. So I moved it -3 meters or -3 units. I can also do rotate here. So I will do R in the Z direction, and let's do 45 degrees. So that's another way to get exact stuff. You can also do scale. Scale is interesting. It's on a 1. If you type in 1, nothing will happen. If you type in scale, so S2, it'll make it twice as big. If you do S.5, it'll make it half as big. So it's on a decimal system. It's not a percentage system. Just be careful with this. If ever in doubt, just undo a lot. Okay, let me see. Is there anything else you need to know before we get started? Okay, that's the user interface. Many of the operations can be done here. Object, transform, do all these things. Feel free to go through and play with things. You can add different things. So here's mesh. We can do a sphere. I have a sphere now. And then I can add cylinder. Oh, that'll be fun. Click and drag that out of there. Look at that. You can get all sorts of things. Delete those. Okay, really quick introduction into edit mode. Here I'm going to delete my camera and my light because I don't need those right now. Introduction to edit mode. You can come up here and click on object mode, go to edit mode, or you can just hit tab, and now you're in. Now real quick, I want to explain what we're looking at here. I'm going to go back to object mode. Before I get ahead of myself, I really like keyboard shortcuts. They make you fast, they make you efficient, and many times if you go through and try to find the right thing, you're trying to find the right command or the right button, sometimes you'll forget about what you were trying to do. So it's important to learn your key commands, learn where everything is, and then you can go faster. Now there's a downside to doing key commands, which is sometimes you learn new things by exploring. It's always good to have a little bit of both. Know your key commands, but also go exploring. So here we go. Edit mode. I'm going to tab in, and now a lot of things changed here. A lot of different tools. Feel free to play around with some of these. It's a lot of fun. It really is. But for right now, I'm going to go through the basics. Here's your menus, but you also have keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to show you a little bit of both. Right now, we are in vertex mode. So, oh my goodness, I meant to show you something very important. All right, I'm going to back out of here. Go back to object mode. And I'm going to add in a UV sphere. So you see this sphere, it has different faces. We will say it is faceted, kind of like a jewel or a diamond. It's real pretty. But each of these faces is made up of 4 vertices, and this face is made up of 4 edges. Let me show you. Click the object, hit tab to go into edit mode. Everything's selected. Deselect. I'll click out here to deselect. You can also hit A to select all, or you can do Alt A. So click Alt first, then A, or hold Alt, then A, and that'll deselect everything. So let's check out. Here's 1 vertex, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 vertices. 4 vertices makes up a polygon. 4 edges make up a polygon. What I'm doing is I'm going to click and then hold shift and click, hold shift and click, hold shift and click, and there's my polygon. Awesome. There's my fancy dancy polygon. I just hid everything else real quick by doing shift H. If I want to bring everything back, I can do Alt H and it's fine. Here we go. So here are my vertices. Now, between 2 vertices is an edge. Notice my edge is selected here. And between 4 edges is a polygon. Notice the whole thing lit up. I'm going to go to polygon. Now, to go between these, oh my goodness, I'm getting really excited. This is my favorite part. I'm going to go between these up here. Up here on the left are the different select modes. So vertex, edge, and polygon. But you can also switch by typing 1. So 1 gives you vertices, 2 gives you edges, and 3 gives you polygons. Cool stuff. Alt H to bring everything back, and then I'm going to tab out. I just want to delete that because I'm done with it at the moment. Alt H to unhide my cube. Now let's go into edit mode and mess around here. You see my gizmo's gone. I don't have my gizmo to move things around. That's because it put me back into the selection box mode. I'm going to go down to move, or you can do spacebar G. Sometimes it's spacebar Shift G. Just hover over your button to see what shortcut you have. And let's play around. We can move things. The last little thing I'm going to show you before we get to playing is adding in detail. So right now, go back to vertex mode with number 1. I can move single vertices. I can move them anywhere I want. I can make some cool, funky shapes. It's fun. But that's about all I can do with that, because right now I don't have more vertices. I need more vertices if I want to add in more things. One way to do that is Control R, and what this does is it gives you an edge loop. Control R. So I'm hovering over an edge, and it will slice that edge in half all the way around. So I'm going to click once, and now I can slide that edge wherever I want. Now that gives me a little bit more stuff to work with. Cool. And you can make all sorts of things with this right now. Okay, Control R again, because I want to add some more information, more vertices. So here I am, hovering over an edge. Now if you use your scroll wheel, scroll up, now you get 2. So I'm going to click, and I could drag it, but I don't want to. I'm going to right click to cancel that drag operation. Alright, and let's add one more edge loop right here. Control R, and click, and click. Now I'm going to click one vertex, hold shift, click another, move that up. Look at that. Now you can just start having loads of fun. Alright. Go back into object mode, and I have made a rock. Now, you can use this to start making other things. Other operations you might want to try would be extrude. So you can come down here to extrude region. You can click and drag and do along normals. So let's do along normals. Go into edge mode. And let's click and drag on that, and it'll pop out along its normal. I'll explain normal a little later. Let's go back to along region. What? Go along here. Now notice it's going all kind of wonky ways. Let's click a Y to lock it to the Y mode. Alright, let's scale that selection down. We can rotate that along the Y-axis, so R, Y, let's rotate that, Control R, and so then this is when keyboard shortcuts come in very handy. Give me that, because I am able to fly in here. Come on now. I am able to fly and do lots of different things very quickly. Alright, I hope that was a decent introduction to the user interface of Blender. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and happy blending!